Hello, hello, hello. Let's get started. Chapter 16. Simon Says. 5 suspect robots were taken to the human experimental facility. 2 were frozen into position and completely uncommunicative. The other 3 were mobile, apparently cooperative, and could speak aloud. As Derek and Ariel entered the building, she shook her head and said, "I'm sure that one's Jeff. We really don't have to waste time on the others." "I'm not doubting you," said Derek. "I'm certain that one of those 2 is Jeff. The problem is that their bodies are the same model, so the medical team can't tell them apart, and I'm not sure you can either. In any case, it appears that we'll have to smoke him out to make him admit which one he is." "Welcome to our facility," said Research One. "Please follow me down the hall. We have the suspect robots here waiting for you. It is large enough to accommodate everyone." He led them into a room from which all furniture and equipment had been removed. From the marks on the floor, Derek saw that it had been cleared for this project. The 5 suspects were standing in a line against one wall. "Derek," said one of them. He looked up in surprise. "Alpha? Alpha, is that you?" He laughed and walked over to the one robot whose physical details were unique, suppressing an impulse to embrace him. "Hi! How did you get here?" "Hi," said Alpha. "I was able to obtain a very small spacecraft and to trace the source of the asteroid assembling operation to this planet. Woolruff accompanied me. More recently, I was detained by a robot search team and brought here." "Spacecraft?" Derek suppressed a giggle of excitement and caught Ariel's eye. "And Woolruff, too. How is she?" "She is recovering from a difficult trip." "Recovering?" Ariel said. "But she'll be all right?" "Yes." "I'm glad," said Derek. "We're worried about her. We'll want to see her when we can. What about the spacecraft? Does it still work? And is it here and available and all that?" "Yes." "Step out of line, Alpha." Derek turned, grinning, to the medical team. "This is not Jeff. I put Alpha together myself." "Hi, Alpha," said Ariel, bouncing on the balls of her feet in excitement. "I'm real glad to see you. But why did they stop you? You have a comlink, don't you?" "Greetings, Catherine. My comlink was originally set at a slightly different frequency. I altered it, but was detained anyway. I believe for having an anomalous comlink. I'm Ariel Welsh now." "I do not understand," said Alpha. "Not now, not now. We'll catch up with each other later," said Derek. "For the business at hand, we're down to 4," said Derek, looking over at the others. "Research One, were you able to begin testing like you said?" "Yes. According to our standard maintenance scanning procedure on their bodies, all 4 are in good condition, other than their common lack of functioning comlinks. Their heads have not been scanned. The 2 speaking robots have given identification that has been verified by the central computer. Their comlinks simply malfunctioned." "Dismiss them," said Derek. "Alpha, you stay right here until further notice." "Report to the nearest repair facility," said Research One. The other 2 robots left. "So," Derek stood in front of the 2 remaining robots, looking back and forth between them, "one of you is almost certainly Jeff. Unless you've fallen asleep, which I really doubt under the circumstances. You can hear me and just aren't letting on. Well, we'll be right back." He turned away, then paused to grin over his shoulder. "Don't go anywhere now. You'll give yourself away." "Surgeon One, you stay and watch them. Research, you and Ariel step outside with me for a minute." Derek paused in the hall, but Research One shook his head. "This is not sufficient for privacy. If you want to talk privately, we must go into another room, and I will create a sonic camouflage. Do not forget that Jeff has robotic hearing." "Lead the way." Derek could hardly keep from dancing around with joy. Alpha had a working spacecraft somewhere here. Once he and Ariel had smoked out Jeff, they could turn him over to the robots and take off. As they followed Research One into another room, he saw the smile on Ariel's face and nudged her playfully with his elbow. She elbowed him back, a lot harder, but still grinning. They entered what was obviously a facility's operating room. Research One flipped a switch on some sort of scanning apparatus, and a faint hum came on. "They will not hear us. What do you wish to discuss?" Research One asked. "They?" Ariel asked. "I don't get it. One of them is an inoperative robot, isn't he? Immobile is not necessarily inoperative, said Research One. We must be cautious. Exactly, said Derek. Here's how I figured so far. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jeff saw us coming in time to order another robot to freeze, and probably to follow only his instructions to activate again. I basically did the same thing with Alpha once. However, in order to hear Jeff's instruction to reactivate, the other robot has to maintain hearing sensitivity and at least some mental activity, right? Correct, said Research One. What about a shortcut? Derek asked. Can't you just scan their heads and find out which has the biological brain in it? No, said Research One. In constructing his special cranium, we used materials that would be extremely resistant to the entrance of any forms of energy, as well as to physical impact. Turning up our scanning beams to a strength that would penetrate his cranium would endanger the brain inside. Hold it, said Ariel. You could use your normal scanning beam, and when you get a reading for one positronic brain and one null reading, we'd know by elimination. We dare not, said Research One. The cranium was tested before use, but not with the human brain inside. Even the normal scanning beam could be dangerous. The first law does not allow us to take a risk of this magnitude. All right. Somehow I'm not surprised, Derek sighed. The laws of robotics still hold precedence on them too, though, said Ariel. I assume our tests will still work, won't they? Yes, they are based on the following, said Research One. If Jeff had a positronic brain, he would have to obey the laws. For instance, if one of you were in danger, he would have to save you. However, as a human, he could allow you to come to harm if he wished. The problem, said Derek, is that Jeff knows the laws and can masquerade as a robot. We also don't know what he told the other robots, said Ariel. If the other robot knows that we are setting up tests, then we won't believe we're really in danger and we won't have to obey the laws either. They'll still behave the same way. Let's get started and see what happens, said Derek. We'll go in order with tests 1, 2, and 3. Derek and Ariel went back into the room of the suspect robots. The medical team had to leave, accompanied by Alpha, in order to avoid confusion. If they did not respond according to the laws, the real robot would see it was a test. If they did respond, they would get in the way. I've had it with you, Derek was yelling at Ariel. You're crazy. He turned toward her in front of both robots. Oh, yeah? She demanded. Then, according to their agreement, she swung back her fist and punched him in the stomach. Even though he'd been expecting the blow, Derek doubled over from the impact, partly from her very solid punch, and partly as an act. Both robots jumped forward, no longer frozen in place, and pulled them apart. If one had been a shade faster, he couldn't tell. Let it go of him. Me too, Ariel shouted as they had prearranged. Both the robots obeyed, but remained between them, close enough to prevent more violence. Derek, gasping for breath, looked up and found that they had apparently both deactivated again. It was time for the second test. He caught Ariel's eye, saw that she was ready for him, and leaped at her throat as if to strangle her. Instantly, both robots grabbed him in their powerful arms, held him fixed and helpless. Let go of me, he ordered. Neither one let him go. Now that the violence had been repeated, the first law was going to remain in force over the second, until they judged that the threat was over. You, Ariel ordered, tapping on the arm. You go stand in the hall. The other one will keep me safe here. And you. Derek won't hurt me right now. I know that. You can stand close if it makes you feel better, to stop us again if necessary. When both robots had complied, Derek and Ariel spoke amiably to demonstrate that the immediate threat of violence was over. Then the robots allowed them to retreat to the OR once again to consult with each other. Jeff's pretty good, said Derek. He was right with the real robot every section. Whichever one it was. He grinned. You got a pretty good punch. Ariel shrugged. Well, you said it should be the real thing. But now we know a little more. Direct application of the laws activates the real robot, but only as long as the laws apply. Then he freezes again, like Jeff ordered him. We'd better keep them separate. If Jeff is picking up his cue by watching the other robot, he'll never mess up. Good idea. Ready for test 3? Let's go, he said. In the hallway, Surgeon 1 handed him a small gray cylinder that fit conveniently into his hand. It was an intermediate laser scalpel used for certain types of repair on robot bodies, capable of cutting through any portion of a robot body. Derek hefted it, shifted it comfortably, and held it up as he entered the testing room. "I'm going to cut your leg off with this," he said to the suspect robot, "in return for your interfering with me." He turned it up to full power, stood where he was, and aimed the beam at the robot's knee joint. "The third law says you can't allow this to happen, right?" The robot slid to one side, avoiding the beam. Derek followed him with it, and the robot moved away again. When Derek started shooting his legs in spurt like it was a gun, the robot danced around, backing up, dodging, watching the beam intently. "I'll get you," Derek growled. "Ha! Close. Ha! Again. Almost. Ha! Hold still. I'll take your leg off." The robot continued to shuffle away from the beam with its quick and reliable robot reflexes. Derek laughed triumphantly and shut off the laser. "Got you, Jeff. An old Simon Says trick. Remember that game? I ordered you to hold still, and in the heat of the moment you forgot that the second law takes precedence over the third. You didn't hold still." The robot in front of him had frozen again, but now Derek was certain. "You can't fool me now. It's too late. A positronic brain wouldn't forget the order of the laws for even a second under any circumstance." Derek called in everyone else and explained the situation. "This is convincing to me," said Research One. "Since the other suspect is by elimination almost certain to be a true robot, we can verify beyond any doubt by sending him to a repair facility." "Research One," Surgeon One said warningly. "I will escort him," said Research One. "The repair crews must be very cautious in the event that we are mistaken. They must understand the situation so that no laws will be violated." Derek jerked his thumb at Jeff. "We know who he is, but until he quits play acting we can't have much of a dialogue." Ariel caught his eye and inclined her head toward the door. Derek followed her out and they returned to the OR to talk. Surgeon One remained with Jeff. "Maybe we can sucker him," said Ariel. "All right. How?" "Loosen the watch on him. He's still trying to play act being a robot because there's a microscopic chance that a postronic brain could have malfunctioned this way. But if he tries to escape, he'll have to admit we know." A few minutes later, everyone gathered in the testing room again in front of Jeff, except for the robot still motionless in the hall. "We've decided to move on to the next phase. Research One, please escort the other robot to be repaired." Research One left the room. "Now," said Derek, "Alpha, please leave the room but remain out in the hall, at the end of the hall, out of the way. We definitely have to talk to you." "Yes, Derek." Alpha left. "Surgeon One," said Ariel, "we are no longer completely sure that this robot is really Jeff. Return to your regular duties in the facility. Derek and I are going to have to figure out what to do next." "Very well." Surgeon One left the room. Derek casually put his arm around Ariel and walked her toward the door. "Maybe we should get something to eat and relax a little. Then we can work out our next move." Ariel closed the door behind them. Alpha was waiting motionless at the far end of the hall. They went out the front door in the opposite direction. Without speaking, since they didn't know how well Jeff could hear, they walked outside and looked around. The human experimental facility was a simple rectangular block. It had none of the striking geometric design of most of Robot City. With their usual efficiency, the robots had built it without frills. Derek saw nowhere to hide except around the corner. They sat down on the pavement just around one corner, still silent by prior arrangement. Jeff was likely to be cautious, so they knew they would have to wait a long time. Surgeon One, also by agreement, had taken up his regular duties in a room across from the testing room. With his own robotic hearing, he also was waiting for Jeff to make his escape. Derek found himself grinning in anticipation of using Alpha spacecraft. They could help the robots take care of Jeff, of course, but now that they could look forward to leaving when the job was done, waiting didn't seem so bad. He looked at Ariel, who was also smiling when she turned to him. With suppressed laughter, they didn't have to talk to feel close. The day wore on, and Jeff's patience was at least as good as theirs. Derek did notice that Ariel seemed as content as he was to keep waiting. He kept thinking that he would soon go somewhere and find out who he was, or even find a cure for his amnesia. Maybe she was dreaming of finding her own cure off the planet. Finally, a single, moderately loud robotic shout went up inside the facility. "Derek!" He recognized Surgeon One's voice and jumped up with Ariel. Around the corner, Jeff was just now walking at the front door with casual, controlled steps. "Got you!" yelled Derek, pointing at him. "Give it up." He and Ariel ran up to block Jeff's way. Jeff reached for both of them with his powerful robotic arms. He was free of the first law, but Surgeon One wasn't, and he leaped on Jeff from behind, pinning his arms back. "Alpha!" Derek called. "Come out here!" "Release me!" Jeff yelled at Surgeon One, pulling and jerking to no effect. "You may not harm them or yourself," Surgeon One answered. "I have no intention of harming anyone," Jeff shouted angrily. "I order you to release me." "Hold him, Doc," said Ariel, keeping her distance. Derek saw that Surgeon One was hesitating, probably experiencing a post-traumatic conflict from the fact that Jeff had never really shown a desire to harm anyone. The weight of conflicting human orders was otherwise near neutral. Before, and now, he had only pushed them so that he could get away. "Release me and freeze," ordered Jeff. He wrenched himself free and started to run. Surgeon One had not frozen, but he was moving slowly, uncertainly, as he worked through the conflicting human orders. "Alpha!" Derek shouted, seeing him emerge from the building. "That's Jeff. He needs medical care and doesn't know it. First law applies. Stop him." In surprise, Jeff paused to look back. Surgeon One was again galvanized to action by the first law application, since it overrode the problems of the second law. He tackled Jeff around the knees as Alpha ran up to pinion his arms. Jeff's robot fist swung low and jerked back Surgeon One's head. He also raised the knee and then kicked upward, throwing Alpha back. Surgeon One held on, though preventing him from getting away. As the three robots wrestled and thrashed together, Derek saw the difficulty. Alpha and Surgeon One could only subdue Jeff without risking any damage to him, and in the confusion of combat they were being particularly careful, since no one had ever really tested the cranial protection around Jeff's brain. On the other hand, Jeff was free to smash, twist, and rip at their bodies in any way he thought would get him free. Derek skipped helplessly around the three tussling bodies. With two opponents, Jeff could not get free, but with the unequal restrictions placed on them, the other two could not quite pin him down either. Ariel looked from them to Derek's questioningly, then turned and ran, looking for more help. Now Alpha was lying flat on his back, with Jeff trying to get up off him while Surgeon One had his arm pinned behind him. Jeff managed to get one of his legs underneath him and struggled to stand. Alpha's standard arm was caught beneath his body, and Jeff was still gripping his other one above the elbow. His other one. "Alpha!" shouted Derek. "Make your arm flexible. Loosen it up. Use it however you need in order to stop him." Instantly, Alpha's arm lost its elbow entirely and became a fully flexible coil. The hand curved back and tightened on Jeff's wrist to pull it through. Then the arm curved around, locking the joints on Jeff's arm to make it immobile. Surgeon One released Jeff's arms and encircled his knees. Alpha and Surgeon One stood up and finally held Jeff immobile, off the ground, as Ariel ran up with a couple of other robots she had commandeered with an emergency first law appeal. Jeff was still thrashing around in his captor's arms. "You slag heaps, you traitors, canhags! You can't hold me. I'm human, you understand? Let go of me. Now I order you to put me down." "Can you sedate him?" Derek asked. "You can't just hang on to him this way while we figure out what to do next. Making him sleep wouldn't be harming him." "I will sedate him," said Surgeon One, still holding Jeff's legs with effort. "We are making progress, I believe. When Research One returns, we must consult on the matter of treatment. I experienced a moment of hesitation while in physical conflict just now over a first law question that must be addressed." He took a step backward, reacting to a convulsive kick by Jeff. The other robots took hold as well, assuring that the cyborg could not escape. "I'll kill you! I'll melt you all down!" Jeff screamed. "Just wait till I'm in charge!" He thrashed and kicked again. "Go ahead and do what you need to," said Derek. "We'll hang around. Don't worry about that." "Into the OR," said Surgeon One. He and the others trooped inside the building, carrying their screaming cargo. Derek let out a sigh of relief and turned to Ariel, ready to make some kind of joke. He stopped when he saw the look of disappointment on her face. Thus ends the chapter. So, what happened to Woolruff? Hope you enjoyed. And come back next week.